you have been trying to heal for years. Therapy, journaling, meditation, self-help books stacked like armor against a pain you cannot name. And yet Carl Jung would say you have been healing the wrong wound entirely. There is an invisible injury most people carry from their earliest bond, the mother wound. Not what your mother did or did not do, but what her unlived pain silently planted inside your psyche before you ever had words for it. And until you recognize the 6 signs that this wound is running your life, every healing path you walk will lead you in circles around the one door you are afraid to open. Carl Jung spent his entire career mapping the invisible architecture of the human soul. He charted shadows and archetypes. He descended into his own unconscious and nearly lost his mind doing it. But there was one wound he returned to again and again, in his patience, in his writing, and in the mirror. The mother wound. Not the surface-level frustration with your childhood, not the arguments you remember or the birthdays she forgot. Something far older. Something that was installed in you before you had language, before you had memory, before you even had a stable sense of self. Jung believed this wound was the invisible foundation beneath almost every psychological struggle. Anxiety, depression, failed relationships, chronic emptiness, self-sabotage, all of it. And here is what makes this dangerous. If your mother wound is still active, it does not just slow your healing, it blocks it entirely. Every insight you gain gets filtered through the wound. Every breakthrough gets pulled back down by its gravity. You feel like you are climbing a mountain with an anchor chained to your ankle, and you have never once looked down to see what is holding you. To understand why this wound runs so deep, you have to understand something Jung and his student Erich Neumann spent decades uncovering. They described what they called the Great Mother archetype. This is not your personal mother. This is a primordial image encoded in the collective unconscious of every human being who has ever drawn breath on this planet. It is the psychic blueprint for what mother means at the species level. Older than any culture, any religion, any language. And this archetype has 2 faces. On one side stands the good mother, warmth, safety, nourishment. The feeling of being held by something larger than yourself, the ground beneath your feet, the knowledge that you belong here. On the other side stands the terrible mother, devouring, abandoning, suffocating. The dark void that whispers one message on repeat: you are not enough and you never will be. In healthy development, your actual mother serves as a carrier for the good mother archetype. She provides what psychologists call containment, a secure emotional base from which you can explore the world, knowing you have somewhere safe to return to. But when your mother cannot provide that containment because of her own depression, her own trauma, her own unhealed childhood, something catastrophic happens inside you. The archetype splits. You do not internalize the good mother. You internalize the terrible mother. And this is not a conscious decision. It happens in the pre-verbal basement of your psyche, long before you had words for anything at all. The result is a feeling that has no name but shapes everything. A kind of existential freefall. A deep, wordless conviction that the ground beneath you could disappear at any moment. That you do not quite belong here. That something fundamental is missing, and you cannot figure out what it is. Many of us mistake this feeling for our personality. We say, I have always been anxious. We say, I am just wired this way. But it is not who you are. It is an echo of a fracture that happened before you could speak. What gives Jung's work its extraordinary depth is that he was not theorizing from a safe distance. He was writing from inside the wound. His mother, Emilie Preisswerk, was a deeply troubled woman. When Jung was only 3 years old, she was hospitalized for several months during a severe psychiatric crisis. Picture that for a moment. You are 3. Your entire universe is your mother's face, her voice, her presence, and one day, without warning, she vanishes. In his autobiography, Memories, Dreams, Reflections, Jung described her as having 2 distinct personalities. One was the ordinary, warm, human mother. The other was something he called uncanny, an archaic, almost otherworldly presence that unsettled him to his core. He wrote that after her hospitalization, he developed a profound distrust of the word love. That word became permanently associated with unreliability and loss. This is one of the most revealing confessions in the entire history of psychology. The man who would spend his life mapping the deepest territories of the unconscious was himself shaped, deformed, by the absence of his mother. His concepts of the shadow, the anima, individuation, all of it can be read as one long, courageous attempt to heal the wound that started in a nursery in Kesswil, Switzerland, when a 3-year-old boy lost the only world he knew. He did not just describe the human condition, he bled into the pages. There's a concept that takes Jung's framework even further. The French psychoanalyst André Green identified something he called the dead mother complex, and despite its name, it has nothing to do with physical death. It describes a mother who is present in body but absent in spirit. She is there, sitting at the kitchen table, driving you to school, making dinner, but her eyes are somewhere else. Her emotional light is off. She might be depressed, dissociated, consumed by grief, trapped in her own unprocessed pain. She is a ghost wearing a mother's body, and the child learns a devastating wordless lesson from this ghost. My aliveness is too much for her. My joy overwhelms her. My needs are a burden. My very existence is the thing that is breaking her. So the child does something heartbreaking. They dim their own light. They become quiet, serious, hyper-responsible. They learn to read the emotional temperature of a room before they learn to read words on a page. They become the parent of their own parent. As adults, these children often experience something that does not feel like sadness. It feels like nothing, a flatness, a blankness, a chronic, low-grade numbness that sits beneath everything, beneath their success, beneath their relationships, beneath every good thing in their life. It is the emotional echo of the mother's face they could never animate, no matter how hard they tried, no matter how good they were, no matter how small they made themselves. And this is the foundation that blocks all healing, because you cannot build a house of wholeness on a foundation of nothingness. Every tool you use, therapy, meditation, affirmations, slides off the surface of this void like water off glass. Until you name what lives in that void, nothing else can reach it. Tell me in the comments, which version of this wound do you carry? The mother who vanished, or the mother who was there but somehow never arrived? Write it below. You do not need to have it figured out. Naming it is already the first crack in the wall. Subscribe if you want to keep going. What comes next is where the real work begins. Now that you understand the root, the fracture in the archetype, the ghost in the room, you need to see how it shows up in your actual life. Because this wound does not announce itself. It disguises itself as personality traits, relationship patterns, and beliefs you have never thought to question. These are the 6 signs that your mother wound is actively blocking your healing right now. The first sign is a bone-deep belief that you must earn your right to exist. You are the overachiever, the perfectionist, the one who never says no, the one who collapses the moment they stop moving, because stillness brings you face to face with a void you cannot bear to feel. You measure your value by your last accomplishment. When you succeed, the relief lasts hours, sometimes minutes, before the hunger returns. When you fail, even slightly, the shame is not proportional. It is existential. It does not say you made a mistake. It says you are the mistake. Rest feels dangerous to you. Not lazy, dangerous. Because when you stop performing, the terrible mother's voice fills the silence, and her message has not changed since you were an infant. You are not enough. You have never been enough. And if you stop proving yourself for even one moment, everyone will see it. This is not ambition. This is survival behavior wearing ambition's clothes. The second sign is an insatiable emotional hunger that nothing in the external world can fill. Buddhist psychology has a name for this, the hungry ghost. A being with an enormous empty belly and a throat too narrow to swallow. It consumes endlessly and is never satisfied. You might recognize this as the feeling that drives you to the refrigerator at midnight when you are not hungry. The compulsive online shopping, the scrolling that lasts hours, the relationships you dive into with desperate intensity, convinced that this person will finally be the one who fills the hole. But the hole was not made by the absence of food, or things, or even love. It was made by the absence of a mother's attuned presence during the months and years when your nervous system was learning what enough feels like. No external source can fill an internal absence. And every time you try, you reinforce the wound's central lie. that what you need must always come from outside yourself. The third sign lives in your relationships, and it swings between two extremes. On one side, you become anxious and clingy. You monitor your partner's moods like a weather station. A delayed text triggers panic. A moment of emotional distance feels like abandonment. You pour yourself into the relationship with an intensity that suffocates, because unconsciously, you are not loving a partner. You are trying to get your mother to finally show up. On the other side, you become avoidant. You build walls so high that no one can get close enough to hurt you. You leave before you can be left. You choose partners who are emotionally unavailable because unavailability feels like home. It is the only version of love your nervous system recognizes. Both patterns are two sides of the same coin, and that coin was minted before you could walk. Subscribe if you want to keep going. There's more of this work waiting, and it goes deeper every time. The wound stops here, not because you are strong enough to force it, but because you are finally brave enough to feel it. Thank you for being here. I will see you in the next one.